of the meeting so that we can pray for our year. So without further ado, I am going to call upon Elliot Forsheimer, who is the Executive Director of the Westchester Jewish Council, to introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Karen. I'm not sure where I should be looking. Where's
The camera's up there in the corner.
Hi, everybody. So nice to see everybody. Today's been a really good day, I'll be honest with you, but this is even better than good because this past May, I had the honor of traveling to Israel with 20 clergy people and my friend and colleague, Tali Strom of UJA, to go on a mission of unity and love and getting to know one another. I'm so pleased today that we have two members of that trip with us. They have lengthy bios. I'm not going to read that because they're not about bios. It's about their heart and their kindness and their goodness and the work which they do to unify us in a divisive time. So on my far left is Rabbi Evan Hoffman of Congregation Anshe Shalom. He's been there for 10 years or so, and he's currently the president of our Westchester Board of Rabbis. And next to him in the blue is Reverend Erwin Trollinger, who recently became a bishop in Ghana, but that's for another story, of Calvary Baptist Church. It's tough times, and people like Reverend Trollinger and Rabbi Hoffman are leading us to better times. So that's my introduction. Thank you for being here.
Would you like to kick us off? Okay.
Good afternoon or good evening to everyone. Once again, I had the esteemed pleasure to go to Israel with a group of people that we had no idea of who we were. Absolutely not. We first meeting, we met somewhere along this strip at a synagogue. We had some bagels, we had some tea, and we just looked at each other, and that was about it. And then the next thing we know, we were on a van heading to JFK, which was okay. We got to Israel. We had to wait for our luggage forever and ever and ever, and it began the process of us getting to know each other. We had to get out of our silos and say hi to each other. And I'm very inquisitive. My people say I'm not nosy. They tell me don't say nosy, I'm inquisitive. So I was being very inquisitive because there were people on the side that was on the wall and they were praying. And I'm like, what is going on over there? So I was able to ask one of the rabbis what were happening. So they were in prayer. I said, oh, cool. That's interesting, you know? And once we got to a kibbutz, and when we got to kibbutz, I had my definition of a kibbutz, and I wasn't too happy with my definition. But when I got into the Betty Davis room, I was just as happy as all get out. And the reason why I say that is because you have conceived thinking. For me, African American kibbutz mean what? They're roughing it out. You know, they're in the dirt. I'm like, no, I can't do that, you know? And I get into the Betty Davis room, you know, my room. What was your room called?
I don't remember. It was good.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. The tub was in the middle of the bathroom, and you know you had to climb inside of it. I was having back issues, so I decided I'm not going to do that. I don't want to have to call nobody to come and get me. But it started off like that. I'm sorry. We went to Caesarea Philippi, and we had our first dinner, and that's when we started breaking bread and started talking to each other. Figuring out children and wives and all that kind of good stuff. And so as the trip continued, we developed friendship that eternity will always bear witness to. So I'm gonna stop right there.
Lovely. Rabbi?
All right, so the trip was one that I had no idea what it was gonna be all about. Elliot had asked me to join in, and I said, okay, fine, I'll go. And yeah, at that first meeting, we at Howie Synagogue in Rye, we met, but very little interaction because it's just a short, figure out what you're going to do and get your passports and all that stuff. I think we bonded on the airplane and it's Caesarea at dinner and in Kfar Blum at the kibbutz Kfar Blum, but we all had a good time. So that by the time we got to Jerusalem, which was Monday night, about a day into the trip, everybody knew everybody else. We're all comfortable with each other, and there was cross fertilization. So instead of just the Reform rabbis hanging out together, the conservative rabbis hanging out together, the Protestants together, it was all intermingled on the bus rides, and then especially at night in Jerusalem, when we had our own time to do whatever we choose. It was not scheduled or scripted. The walks in the old city, down the narrow alleyways and down King George Street, past all the shops, the Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, that's where everybody was able to have a good time with each other. And it all came to a crescendo in the hotel lobby on the Wednesday night. Jay gathered us around some alcohol and we poured our hearts out to each other for a good few hours.
Yeah.
Explaining why we went into the clergy, some theological discussion, philosophical discussion, and that allowed us to really feel an intimate connection, a personal connection with people who are denominationally speaking, worlds apart from ourselves. So it was an eye-opening experience in terms of the itinerary, but even more importantly, getting to know people who live 5 miles away, but who might have as well been a world away before we interacted.
Fabulous. I'm so glad to hear both of you say that, and I'll tell you why. It reminds me of the kind of the bedrock purpose of the trip, that you as clergy, sometimes you're always leading people, right? You are always on. And somehow being in a community, forming a new community of fellow clergy in the Holy Land for multiple faiths is so powerful. And the idea that you came together, alcohol helps a little, to have that intimate connection and create that kind of bond is very powerful. Then I take a step back and I have my, you're clergy, you're my leaders. And I want to know, how did the trip affect the work that you're able to do, or that you feel you will be able to do in your communities and helping to build bridges with other communities? How did the trip help that, and how do you see that sort of moving forward? What did you take back to your communities? How would that impact your reaching out? Either one.
I'll answer. I'm the rabbi of a very small shul in downtown New Rochelle, which is tucked away in the corner of the county, that for a long while has not interacted much with the rest of the Jewish community or the rest of the outside world. But the reality is that we're not in a heavily Jewish area, and the demographics of the town are changing from major development. It was important for me to be able to have relationships with people beyond the Jewish world, because that is the world of my immediate vicinity. One of the other members of the trip, my partner, so to speak, was Minister Mark McLean of the Generations Church. Generations Church is on Main Street, literally 3 blocks from my house. But I never met him before. I never knew who he was. And why should that be the case, that clergy so close, we have no clue who each other are? And this was an opportunity to develop relationships, not just countywide, but even hyper-locally, that was very helpful for me in my specific narrow slice of the community, just to work with other people on the domestic issues of the Rochelle. Just one example.
Right.
For me, I say this with all due respect, people now call me and say, you're friends with the Jews, so we need you to help. So wait, I just went on a trip, I went on a trip and I gained friends, and that's what basically happened. When Jay brought us together at the bar, it was transforming, because we were able to hear theological ideas of rabbis, that we as Christians have what we call a calling. And it is so oppositely different. Professionalism, a passion to do this calling, you know? And so as we began to talk about it, we finally understood it's basically the same. It is a decision that the individual makes to give themselves over to God, to do the work of God in our greater communities. And so I am asked by other Black groups or Latino groups and say, can you bring some of your Jewish friends or whatever? A couple of weeks ago, Greenberg Human Rights Bureau had me speak about anti-Semitism. And so what I did was, prior to going to the session, I called up Rabbi Shira, I called up Rabbi Brunstein, and they got Rabbi Adam Bopachin together and the rabbi of Hebrew Institute, Rabbi Martyr. And so I sat down and I said, listen, I've been invited to talk about anti-Semitism. I don't know what they're talking about. I don't even know why they asked me, but they asked me because I went on the trip. I don't know why they asked me. So I said to them, I said, this is what I'm about to say. And I said, hate is hate. If it's color, it's religion, if it's sexism, whatever it is, hate is hate. And if a person has hatred in their heart, they're not fully embracing the humanity of what God created us all to be. And after I got finished talking to them, Rabbi Brunstein said, you got it. You got it. Because I'm convinced, and I'm gonna throw the idiot on the table. So when Kanye West sits in a studio with all Black on and spewing the fact that Adolf Hitler was a leader and and I look at him and say, then you have been brainwashed, psychologically, emotionally damaged, and you don't know your history. Because if you know your history, when Adolf and his Nazis went into Africa and what he did to the Africans as well, how was he a great leader? So when people, I always say this, when people have a small chunk of truth, a small chunk of information, and that's all they base their lives on, they're ignorant. But when you want to know the whole story, like Evan did not go on the Holy Mountain. Me being an African-American clergy is saying, what's wrong with him? Why is he here? He tried to explain to us, but I was like, I don't get it. I just don't get it why he's not up here, right? But simultaneously, while I'm up there, I all of a sudden get an epiphany because I'm trying to figure out if this is where the temple was, how did Islam get up here? And then I remember a sacred scripture that Jesus shared with us. And then it dawned on me, and this is Trollinger. I said, those Vangel people got us fighting for something that we don't need to fight about. We're fighting over stuff that they have reinterpreted scripture to fit their. And so I became mad because I'm saying, I've been hoodwinked. Oh no, I'm not gonna do this. But to understand the sacredness of the land, the integrity of the land, and people's decision about the land, that I must honor that and not look at, somebody else's philosophy or theory that says the other person's wrong. There's different sides.
That is very powerful to hear. Do you think there are, or what do you think that how can we as communities go beyond the activities that we currently do together, whether we're having a gathering, we're standing up, you know, to join our physical presence against hate, or we are breaking bread together at a diversity breakfast, all important activities. But how do we delve deeper and come together, perhaps in this community around the corner, as opposed to a broader community? What kinds of activities do you think that it makes sense for us as people to do to build the same kind of understanding without being able to take all of Westchester to Israel, although that would be a lot of fun.
Allow me to give an
Yeah.
unexpected, non-conventional answer. And this is something that came to me, not from my activities in Westchester, but 14 years ago, when I arranged, was one of several, but key person in arranging the Pope Benedict XVI to visit Park East Synagogue in Manhattan. I was the assistant rabbi there at the time. It was the first ever visit of a Pope to an American synagogue. And people were critical of it. You know, he's a German, he's a Nazi, he's a Hitler Youth, all sorts of criticism. Oh, how can the rabbis bring them to shul on Erev Pesach, the day before Passover? A lot of criticism. And the response that was most compelling to try to convince people not to be critical of it was, there are people out there who revere that man as their religious leader. A billion people out there, including many people who don't like Jews. And the fact that he's seen on the television in a synagogue chumming it up with an octogenarian rabbi and a Holocaust survivor and other Jews in the synagogue will make an impact. Just the fact that people see it is a big deal. Now let's translate that to what happens in Westchester, or for that matter, in any county around the country. There always have been and always will be interfaith activity between the clergy. What's most important is that everybody else knows about it, that it happened, sees visual images of it, and knows that it wasn't just a pro forma and I shake your hand and I walk away, but rather that it was very cordial and very friendly. Because if they know that, then whether it's in my community or anybody else's community, any clergyman's community, where there are people with more narrow-minded opinions and often bigoted opinions, if they know that their rabbi, minister, priest, imam, whatever it is, was very friendly with the other, who is otherwise derided and ridiculed, and all of a sudden that other can't be seen in such a negative light, because my own pastor, my own rabbi is their best friend. So that doesn't mean that any particular activity happened at the scale of thousands of people together at one time. You can't take all Westchester to Israel, but everybody should know that some people did go, people who are respected and whose opinion matters. Therefore, those who might have unpleasant opinions may no longer hold those unpleasant opinions.
I agree. I totally agree. And I also agree that one of the things that I've been talking to with Shira and Brunstein and Bokachin is our middle school children coming together and start communicating and having activities together. I choose the middle school because 6th, 7th, and 8th, they can still be kids and they can grow up as teenagers, knowing each other even better. I don't do the little babies, stuff like that. But when you're 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade, you're starting to shape some thoughts and some ideas about yourself. That's how I got into the church at middle school. 14 years old, I get into the church and here I am so many years later, the head of a church. So I believe that we ought to do integrating our children together and learning. One of the things I said to, I don't know which one of my rabbi friends, I said this to, or maybe I probably said it to 2 of them. I said, I would like to take a Jewish movie, Schindler's List is too long, but I would like to take a movie from the Jewish perspective and take Till and bring Black and Jewish kids together and watch and see what their communication is about the movie. What did you see? What do you observe? And then out of the blue, they'll find out we're dealing with the same experiences. There's no difference between hate. Hate is hate. And so when children grab a hold to it and we progressively create them to be adults, it becomes fantastic. One of the things I shared in Africa, and I share whenever I go, is that the reason why Black Lives Matter movement became so powerful within the United States is because whites of whatever denomination was now living in places that used to be Black. So you have white people living in Harlem, living in areas, Bed-Stuy, living with and seeing what police do to Black people. And so when the Black Lives Matter movement occurred, you're not just seeing Black people walk down the street, you're seeing everybody walk down the street, because America all of a sudden had this racial realization, reckoning, and it was like, oh, wow. That's why when they marched in Washington, D.C., and they thought there was going to be a problem, and they had all the military and everybody else around the Capitol, nothing happened. Why? Because humanity was walking. The togetherness was happening. The rainbow was happening, whatever you want to call it, fellowship of the races.
So it's interesting to bring up the points in a human being's life where they are malleable still, in a sense, and to create a better future, right? So the idea of bringing children together to experience each other's cultures and histories and understand that is a very powerful idea. And if you need help bringing those middle schoolers together, I would be happy to help. And that's really very, very powerful. Do you think that there are social issues that are many, not only facing the country, but drilled down that face us every day here in Westchester and all of our communities, that this kind of interfaith, intergroup work can help us come together and try to solve? Like my greatest vision is that we say there are hungry people here in Westchester, and and there are so many, and I happen to be very involved in one in particular, food pantries and efforts to alleviate hunger throughout. But they're individual efforts. If there's a way of coalescing and harnessing the power that you showed could happen just by virtue of having these cross-cultural experiences together. So whether it's watching those two movies together, going to Israel together, whatever it is, to share and understand each other's faith, do you think there's value in trying to come together around the top 3 social issues as broader interfaith, intergroup communities? And is there a mechanism for that?
I don't know if there's a mechanism that we can copy after, but I do know when humanity's hearts are tender and they're able to hear better. So whenever we have an event at the church that occurred while I was away, and we feed people 2 days prior to Thanksgiving. But we have 2 Jewish synagogues that help do that. They bring the stuff. They bring whatever and whatever. I mean, I'm in my office, they're just ringing the doorbell, and then they're there on that particular day. We're getting ready to feed 120 families with boxes of food, and the only thing I have to do is just call one of my Jewish rabbis and say, we need this, or you can help us with this, and bang, bang, boom, it's happening. It's the heart, when the hearts are right and tender. And I think in Westchester, we need to, in White Plains, we need, Evan dealing with it in New Rochelle, we have a whole bunch of brand new people are coming in. What are they bringing in? And we need to make sure that they understand this is how we do it. So you can't bring in your foolishness. White Plains is all these brand new buildings. And I keep on telling my people, drive around, look at what's happening, because these people are coming. but what do they come with? And we will allow any negativism to take over our work. Of course not. Because it's not gonna happen.
So harness that power.
It's a very good point. I mean, in the immediate vicinity of where I live and where my synagogue is, there are thousands of new units that have gone up in the last 4 years, and thousands more are gonna come, so from what I'm told by the mayor. And it's an interesting question of what kind of civic involvement, religious/civic involvement these people are gonna have. And I worry that that's gonna be very minimal, because given the nature of the housing development, it's not for families with children, it's for empty nesters or singles who are not likely to be churched or synagogued, and whose social activity is not necessarily going to be in the place where they live, because it's near a railroad station. They get on the train, go to work, come back, close the door at night, go to sleep. Like, it's not going to be that they are involved in the philanthropic aspect or faith-based aspects of community life. I worry about that.
I think you raise a very good point. Similarly, White Plains and New Rochelle are two great examples where you see all these incredible developments and you think, oh, that's good because the tax base should increase. But on the other hand, you're bringing in people who don't necessarily civically or religiously engage. In all faiths, the Pew study showed recently that this country is suffering from a sort of a disconnect from organized religion across the board,
right.
Really. And historically, the kind of social service work has been based out of religious institutions. And really here in Westchester, a lot of it still is. So the question is, how can we imagine interfaith, intergroup activities among our organizations? Many of them are represented here around our roundtable, that are also represented in the interfaith, clergy work that you've been doing. How do we move outside of the organizations in order to engage? Because the potential is very powerful, right? You can think of the thousands of people who might have some disposable income, who might be, and certainly represent power, human power, to help others if they can be engaged.
I think that they can be engaged, and more likely on issues of do-gooding, rather than come to worship services. Worship services are not necessarily the biggest draw, whether for my religion, your religion, or anybody's religion, but doing some act of righteousness in the context of multiple denominations working together may foster relationships with people who otherwise you would never get. That's what I think could be true, at least in my neck of the woods. I'd like it to be true, and I'd like there to be some mechanism to achieve that. Because certainly on religious grounds alone, our efforts have not proved all that successful.
But these are the potential effects of building these kinds of bridges, right? I'm just curious, what would you say are the greatest social issues facing Westchester today? They don't have to be in any kind of order of priority, and I'm not going to check the statistics.
I would say first food.
So food insecurity.
Food insecurity. I think housing.
Fair housing, we're talking about.
On top of the list. It's really based upon where you live. I don't want to say education. I want to say education. I don't want to say education because it's really based upon where you live, where your school is, and then what your parents or whoever's in the house is structuring you in regards to education. So my two would be housing, fair housing. We have this conversation in White Plains all the times in regards to what is market housing, what is market rent, what is low income, what is low income compared to what Westchester is, and is Westchester really the model for what somebody's demographics to be able to live, downtown White Plains and stuff like that. So I think the security of knowing that you can pay your rent you know? And then, what is the quality of food? You know, I have a son that got his PhD in regards to showing that the bodegas had a direct relationship with kids going to prison. That was his thesis. That was his thesis because of the food, because of the bottom level of the food process, you know, stuff like that. You know, the quarter waters, just some chemicals put together that taste good, and then all of a sudden the kid is hyperactive, or there's some crazy stuff that's happening. And so he was in prison when he was doing his PhD. At that time, I can't remember who the governor was, but Mercy College and a couple of other colleges were there in Sing Sing. I was a chaplain there for 8 years. And when he stepped out, beautiful story, when he stepped out, he was able to finish up, got his PhD, became Dr. Thomas Reiner. And the quick part about it is he returned back to Sing Sing, and CO said, "Hey, Reiner, how you doing?" And the superintendent called the CO over and said, "That's Dr. Reiner to you," okay?
Wow.
Because he had
Hard work.
achieved, you know, what he
Yeah.
needed to do. But when the food ain't right,
Right.
a lot of things else is not going to be right, you know? And so I think the food, you know, with the chemicals and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah, good food,
Yeah,
access to healthy food.
Healthy food, like,
And
right,
enough food.
right. So the boxes like we create for Christmas, that we give out from the church, is a box that can feed a family of 5. You know, the turkey's in there or the chicken's in there, and those ladies at my church, you know, they like, "Did you do this? Did you do that?" You know, I went to my office today and wanted to close the door because they're pointing at me and they don't point back at you. But yeah, I think housing and food.
Healthy food. I'm not gonna let you off the hook on education, because I think fair and equal education, instead of everything dropping to the lowest common denominator, we have a problem in this country, raising it up to the highest level for everybody to go a long way. What do you think, Rabbi Hoffman?
So I can't address issues of education because my constituency is private school Jewish
Right.
education. And I don't know much about what's going on in the public schools, but definitely housing is a big issue, certainly in my town. The issues are different for the Jewish community, especially my Jewish community, than it is necessarily for other religious groups. But the question of what type of housing should be built and where is an ongoing controversy with a resolution. So there are winners and there are losers, but some people's voices were rejected. And other issues are just, you know, basic civility in the public space. That sometimes I walk in downtown New Rochelle, LeCount Place, Main Street, Huguenot, and there leaves a lot to be desired in terms of the civility between people. All people, not just from antagonistic groups, whether racial groups, religious groups, but in general, there's been a marked decline in public behavior.
That's true. Do you think gun violence is an issue? I know it is nationally. I certainly know it is in the city. The reason I ask is because I think also, I really think it's powerful, and interfaith, intergroup work is purposeful, like is do-gooding, as you said, to accomplish certain things. So I'm just curious about what you think about that.
I'm one of the members of New York Fatherhood Conference, and we hold the conference once a year here in Westchester. We just finished one a couple of weeks ago. And so gun violence was on the top of, and it was more preventive than actually is. I can't tell you actually when the last time a teenager or youth used a gun in Westchester County. Now, we know it happens in fortunately, for certain communities and stuff like that. But if we're going to deal with White Plains and Greenberg, and somewhat New Rochelle as well, it's rare. It's rare. There are some people that try to live the music, or try to live the rap, or try to live the stereotype of what's happening in music genre. Westchester is unique that we don't immediate area of Westchester is unique in that we don't have that issue. So, perfect example, the Youth Bureau of White Plains, New York was denied federal money for youth violence. You know why? We don't have violence.
There's not enough of it.
We don't have enough of it. We don't have enough of it. So because we don't have enough of it, we can't get that piece of money. Okay? And that's crazy because we're doing a good job. Because we're doing a good job, the violence is not there. And then we have people that we can do wraparound real quick.
What do you mean by that?
Well, in other words, I'm a part of another group called Grandpa's United.
Mhm.
So Grandpa United is a group of older men. I'm the youngest man in there. I'll let you know that. And so Grandpa's United goes to the high schools, goes to the elementary schools, and they become the example for young men and young girls who don't have grandpas. So all of a sudden you got this new image, because when we first created the group, right? And I was not a grandpa at the time, but when we created the group, we said we need to change the image of what the grandpa is, not just sitting in a chair on the couch or on the porch and sitting like this. You know, we actually are important, you know? And so with grandpas and other men of the community, they do. Within the Black community of White Plains, Greenberg area, we have the African American men of Westchester. We have the Westchester Rockland Guardian Association. We have the fraternities and the sororities, and they give themselves over to make sure that the next generation is okay. And if we identify a kid, then we surround them. Like I have a kid, the very church that I pastor, there was a kid there. He's a young man now. He's doing quite well. But he was a terror. He was a terror. He'd just threw up the classroom. He'd throw the desk all over the place. And so they would call me to come to the school, and I would go to the school, and he would run. And I would say to him, "Excuse me, ladies." I would say to him, "I'm not a woman. I'm not chasing after you. When you're ready to talk, I'm here." Now, guess what? That's the first time I heard a man's voice tell him that he wasn't going to do. I was not going to. He valedictorian of his college, had me come to his college to speak, and I mean, it was just totally
A turnaround.
turnaround. I mean, he got his own business. He's helping them because we make sure that the presence of someone that you want to emulate
Right.
is there. And that same young man, when we have our block party, so we stopped having church banquets and we use the money for the banquet and we have block parties.
Yeah, interesting.
So no more people sitting around in nice, pretty gowns and tuxedos and stuff like that. Then we're gonna take that money, we're gonna buy some popcorn, we're gonna buy some hot dogs, we're gonna buy all these things. And what happens is the greater community comes out. But the same young man that was terrorizing community, he's the one that pays for the bouncy houses.
Good for him. And good for you for making that happen. I want to open it up to people, our members of the Roundtable, and open it for questions. Reverend Trollinger and Rabbi Hoffman have agreed to answer questions and on any of the topics we've discussed, or perhaps anything that's on your mind with regard to interfaith, intergroup work that you're engaged in. So Pam, I don't know if you can watch, if people want to unmute and just speak up. It's hard. I feel very distant from everybody. So would anyone like to ask questions? Who's up in the corner? Oh, Betsy. Okay.
Yeah. Hi, thank you. I guess I wonder whether members of your congregations, what their reaction was when you came home. Maybe when you found out you were going on the trip and the kinds of questions they might have had when you returned.
Okay, before I left, the one question was I going to go on the Temple Mount, or was I going to go in the various holy places of other faith groups? And I gave my various answers, but they were sincerely curious as to how I would comport myself vis-a-vis the holy places. That was before I went on the airplane. When I came home, the congregation was especially interested in the reaction of the non-Jewish clergy to whatever hasbara, which we'll use an unpleasant word, propaganda, was being used by whether the Israeli government, the Israeli military, Israeli tour guide, vis-a-vis our non-Jewish participants. Were they adopting that viewpoint or rejecting it as, you know, not to be trusted? That was the aftermath was, have you won people over for the cause of Am Yisrael, the Jewish nation? That was their biggest question. Very little questioning about interfaith relations necessarily, or interpersonal relations on the trip. More, did you win over some friends for the Jewish people?
And how did you answer?
I answered that we had a great time and people learned a lot and they developed their own opinions, and for the most part, they're very good opinions.
Very good, very good. Reverend Trollinger, what did you experience when you came back?
First of all, I had appointments that week. And I had a speaking engagement, I had a training, and all those things became canceled by my chairman of my deacon board, because I said, I have this opportunity to go to Israel, but I don't know if I can because I gotta speak here and I gotta go to training here. She said, no, you're going to Israel. and so I went. And so when I came back, they wanted to know what was Israel like. They wanted to know what was the relationship. They know I'm a friendly person, so they do develop more friendship. Of course I did. And they wanted to know the sacred places and how did I feel about them. And so there was one where Calvary's supposed to be, and I was simply, and there was a difference. Did you go in there? Yeah. So there was a difference between the Protestant Baptists that I am and the Episcopalians that were the others. And so they thought the place was holy. I said the place is nonsense.
Okay.
However, when I went to Palestine and we went to the Church of Nativity.
Oh, I wasn't at that one. I was at the Nativity.
Yeah, at the Church of Nativity. Now that's a whole nother question. And so you see, I'm 6'3", and I don't think they said was one of the Muslims, somebody that made sure that the door was so low and stuff like that. So I'm 6'3", okay? I gotta go in like this. And as soon as I went in, I said, oh yeah, this is it. This is it. And some of the rabbis kept on saying, Lee, what are you talking about? I said, I feel his presence here. I said, I know that this is sacred. I know that this is holy. The Armenians were over in the corner doing their chants and prayers, and I don't know what they were saying. It was good stuff, but I was feeling the whole moment. And the rabbi was just looking, all my friends, my Jewish rabbi was looking at me and said, Lee, what's going on? I said, yeah, this is it. And I never thought I would go down to the ground. Never thought I would go down. Never in my life, because I'm basically a Protestant. No, that's not it. I went down there, you know, and it blessed me. So they wanted to know what that was like. And so one of the things that we kept on talking about between the rabbis was the knowledge of the book and the faith of the book. So the rabbis would give us some intellectual, factual, theological information. And then we would come back and give them some faith information. And so we were going back and forth in regards to what we were getting. And they would say something with numbers and we're going, yes, tell us some more, you know, give us some more of that, you know? And so I know my people knew that I had been blessed. I think two things I shared with them, and I think you may have heard me say it on my discussion with my church, was that when I went to the Wailing Wall, I went and I wore my Ghanaian daishiki shirt. And I went and I did the 3 prayers, and then I looked down and I said, God, how do people build something like this? This is crazy, right? And so we're walking towards where Calvary is supposed to be and stuff like that. Forgive me for not believing in it, but anyhow. And so I'm walking up the block, and all of a sudden, and my rabbi friends gathered around me when it happened. We're walking, and a Jewish young man in his 20s says, "Israel for Israel and not for Africans." And I just kept on walking. And he said, "Ali, how you feel about that?" I said, "Ignorance is ignorance. I'm not African." You know? So you can look at what somebody's wearing and think one thing. But when you are spiritually in tune and you have the humanity of a heart, you just know he needs to go back to school. Because it didn't faze me. The wall fazed me in Palestine. That fazed me because all of a sudden racism, segregation in the South hit me. Yeah. And I was like, I don't like this place. That was my most trying. Palestine, Nazareth?
No, Bethlehem.
Bethlehem. That was my most challenging place to be at. Because I watch, I listen to my Jewish brothers talk to the guide, and I could see his frustration, and I could see my rabbi's empathy. I was like, wow, this is interesting.
It's complicated.
Yeah, I just like,
But the value of your having been there and understanding from a different perspective, and yet seeing your Jewish clergy friends, some of them from their perspective, and certainly from the Israeli perspective, and if you were in Nazareth from the Arab perspective, it's complicated.
it was very
It's valuable to see all of that.
It was valuable to listen to their conversation. I think we were chilling out in front of a wall, and they were just trying to talk. And the Palestinian, because you were not with us. Were you with us? You wasn't with us in Bethlehem, because you left.
No,
us.
I was there.
You was there.
Totally.
Who left us? Somebody left us. Our guide.
Guide.
Our guide left us. Yes.
Whoso.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah,
That's his Israeli.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, they
Yeah.
switched guys.
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah,
get
yeah,
him,
yeah, yeah.
and you can't guide him.
Right. So I was like, okay. I became friends with our guards. You know, every guard we got, I was his best friend. If they happened, you protect me. Right. But I was like, wow, this is interesting.
That's good to hear. Anybody else around the table here? Anyone? Who? You see a hand up?
Stuart?
I can't see, so go ahead and call out.
Stuart, do you have your hand up?
No?
Oh,
Okay. Go ahead. No,
A pretty specific question, which is there any movement around doing something with the tweens, the 6th to 8th graders, bringing them together in some way, like tangible, movement?
We have to do that. We've been talking, but we really have to do it. COVID has been our restrictiveness right now, right? So prayerfully in 2023, and we have things, and I was grateful that, the TV said that, COVID wasn't happening in Westchester as much as happening in other places. But hopefully we'll be able to do that. When I sat and watched Till, and as I was watching Till, I kept on saying to myself, he's not coming home. He's not coming home. He's not coming home. The kids that went had no idea what the whole Till movie was about, right? And so I'm sitting up there with tears in my eyes saying, she's not coming home.
and for that age group, to
Yeah.
watch someone and understand.
Yeah,
that's very
so I am interested. When we went, Abby Marcus took myself and 7 of my kids and their parents to Alabama and Atlanta. And we developed, this is my second time of a relationship with Jewish people. And so when we went, there was a dark-skinned Jewish young man there. And I just kept on looking at him, trying to figure out, is Morocco, where's he from? I got to find out. So eventually I walked up to him because he's going on a trip. I said, "What's your name?" He told me his name. And then I started talking. I said, "Oh, my mother's Dominican." Okay, now I'm confused. You're a Dominican. I'm a Dominican. My mother married a Jewish man, and so I'm being raised as a Jew. Oh, that's where you get that suntan from. Okay, now I understand. But his faith level and his religious level blessed me. And his belief level was different than our children's belief system. So I said, we really have to do the mingling so that they learn, because where our children learn faith, but they don't learn culture. That's why they have me, but they don't have culture. So when in the Jewish schools, they learn the culture and the belief system. Our children learn faith in God, but not about the civil rights or the African sojourn to America. And I think that those things, so like when Jews say never again, our children don't have a common reference. I make you all laugh. So we had a retreat at my home, which is the parsonage, and we started talking about certain things. And we said, one of the teachers says, "You know what, just like what Stevie Wonder says." And one of the kids said, "Who's that?" I said, "I'm done. I am so done. I'm going to teach history."
So I appreciate that. I just want to make one comment about your reference to this young man who had a Dominican mother and I assume a white American Jewish father.
Russian.
Okay, Russian
Yeah.
Jewish American father.
Yeah.
The tent is broadening and changing, and we as a Westchester Jewish community are making efforts to understand our own broadening tent. So it's interesting from you're not under our tent, but you're looking at it and say, wait, you belong in that tent? Wait,
Right.
don't you belong in our tent? You know, so it's a very interesting perspective. I want to thank you both for coming. This has been, I've found it very powerful and illuminating, and I think that it will frame a lot of interesting ideas for our work forward. Thank you so much for being here.
I think I see one of my friends.
Okay.
With the lavender. What's the name?
Gigi Zeller?
Gigi.
Gigi.
You're on mute, Gigi.
Are you on mute?
On the top left.
Yeah, top left.
Oh,
Yeah, there go my friend.
I'm so happy to see you and hear your wonderful, inspiring remarks from both of you. It's really been very enlightening, and thank you so much for the time and effort that you put in and joined Westchester Jewish Council. Thank you. And thank you for reaching out. I don't have a hat on today.
I know, that's why. That's why I was like, wait, that's my friend. She's been to church. She's been to church. When she came to church, she was first sitting in the second and third row, which was a no-no for our music. And then she had to move back, and then she enjoyed the worship service.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Wonderful. It
So
was
we're going to move to the next part of our meeting, and you're welcome to stay or not, and we'll be in touch. You have to run. Go. It's okay. It's not being rude.
I want to thank you for
Not
having
being rude
me.
at all. Thank
See
you
my
Good to
so
see you
much.
as well.
All right.
Yes, I have a board meeting at
Thank you very
7,
much.
so
Thank you so much.
Good.
We'll be in touch.
thank you, everyone.
Really,
Thank you.
so much.
Thank
I'll give
you.
David your
Okay,
regards.
please do, please
And
do.
I bet part of your work at Sing Sing, because he has done a lot of work over at Sing Sing.
Listen, I had to stop singing because I took Calvary, but
Okay,
if I had a choice,
okay,
I would have stayed
okay,
at Sing
but
Sing.
I'll give him your regards.
Please do.
and
Thank you.
kindness.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to spend the rest of our time, if you would humor me, so we can make the rest of our year very productive. Starting with Dolly, if we could, do people call you Dahlia or Dolly? You said
Oh, no, Dahlia.
Oh, Dahlia.
yeah.
Okay, so I didn't hear the yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for correcting me. Quickly around, who you are, your name,
Yeah.
and your community, and thoughts on what you're either engaged in with Interfaith Intergroup work or what you'd like to see.
So Dahlia Bernstein, I'm a rabbi and I'm also the director of Jewish culture at the JCC in Scarsdale. And it's a new position, it's a new center, the Karen Kolodny Center, in honor of our previous CEO. And so I just started 3 months ago. And so brand new. And one of the things that I'm really thinking about, especially because if you come to our building, we have so many different people, not just Jews, but lots of different backgrounds in our building, and especially our nursery school. And one of the things I'm specifically interested in is building relationship with the Asian community.
The Asian, I just want to clarify, not the Jewish Asian
No.
community in terms
No,
of our
not the
tent, but
Jewish-
the Asian.
But the Asian community, not the Jewish Asian community, but the Asian community. I mean, there is a Jewish Asian community, and there's also interfaith community in that space. And so that's something that I would be really interested in working on. There is an organization called Lunar, which is the Asian Jewish space. And so that's something that I think that would be really powerful.
Great, thank you, thank you.
I'm Melissa Bear. I'm here, I guess, as Temple Beth Abraham is the synagogue I belong to. I've also been a representative on the River Towns Jewish Consortium for a while, but we haven't been meeting lately. So, and that involves the JCC in Tarrytown. And mostly, you know, I think we're very good when a crisis happens in the Jewish community, inviting other people, other religions to come to us. We've held at Temple Beth Abraham these interfaith services, but we're not so good about the other thing. You know, we go to the AME Zion Church on MLK Day. So once a year we visit someone else's, you know, we're not so good the other way around. We put out the call, everybody comes to us when something happens in our community, but I don't see us reciprocating, and I'd like to see that happen a lot more.
Great, thank you. Beautiful. Okay. Gigi, Pam, you're gonna have to help me. I really can't see the names and the faces. Yeah, no, but I know Gigi's up there because we've talked with her before.
Thank you so much for this wonderful, inspiring educational program, I will say. And, you know, Westchester Jewish Council had the group that went to Israel at one of our meetings, and it was just breathtaking and so inspiring to hear these, the 5 people that were there. So keep doing all that you're doing to sponsor all these programs with UJA. It's just really, really incredible. Anyway, I'm Gigi Zeller, and I am on the board of Westchester Jewish Council, honored to be so, as well as on the board of American Jewish Committee. And I deal on a lot of different committees, too long, I think, to mention, but I'm so happy to be here and to see my friend Cheryl Sachs, who's in Arizona, who is AJC Interfaith Chair. So I'm sure we'll get to her. Thank you.
Thanks, Gigi. Go across, huh?
Naomi.
Naomi? Could you unmute yourself? Thank you. Perfect.
First thing that came to mind was obviously the Thanksgiving diversity breakfast. And just so you all know, the enormous amount of work that Cheryl and Nancy put into it, and Jill, who was in the middle of COVID in the week before. So they pulled off miracles left and right, making it happen. But then I'm thinking about the discussion a moment or so ago about the influx of new people into Westchester. And I don't have an answer, but something to engage them in the community. It can be, I mean, religion, as we know, isn't going to be a big draw, but getting people, helping people connect with one another, which many newcomers, as was said, they wake up in the morning, they go to the train, they growl on the way into the city or at home, working from home, but they're not connected with the people or the community around them. And finding ways to do that better, so we have forums in which we can talk with and listen to one another, I think would be important. at AJC, we knee deep into work on the anti-Semitism issue. So I think you're all aware of that. If not, I'll tell you more.
No, we appreciate it, and thank you for raising up. I also was very sparked by the idea of this influx of new people and how do we engage them in doing the good work in Westchester so that it's a positive influence in our community, not a negative.
Right.
Okay, who's next? Betsy. Betsy? Do you have who you are and idea? You're on, can you unmute yourself, please? Oh, okay.
Still muted.
Not happening yet.
Yeah,
There
it's
you
done.
go.
It's done. Hi, I'm Betsy Landis. I live in White Plains and I'm a member of Bet Shalom. And happy to hear that our rabbi, who's been our rabbi for 33 years at this point, is one of the go-to people, Les Bronstein. I'm not sure, I'm sort of playing in my mind the growth of the Jews of color organization and study groups in the New York area. And I don't know very much about them, but one of the reasons, and it may not be interreligious, it may be I'm not sure, maybe interracial, but I feel as if we are as a Jewish community, we are on the cusp of a very changing population of Jews in Westchester. And I would love us to know more about it. And I'm not at all sure that this is the right focus.
Or, yeah.
But Elliot and Pam, I'm sorry to say, I think that it's an area we ought to be learning more about.
Great. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Deborah. Deborah?
Hi, I'm Deborah Marr. I'm Vice President of the Interreligious Coalition of New Rochelle, and I'm in one of those new buildings in downtown New Rochelle right now. We sold our house and moved, but we are one of very few empty nesters, so don't get ideas. There are a lot of empty nesters. It's all young people. We're the old people in the building. But anyway, and I'm a member of Temple Israel New Rochelle and Tamid Westchester, and we're in a bit of a rebuilding phase now, and COVID has, I guess you're all having the same experience. We haven't been together for a while, so we're kind of feeling our way and looking to add to the programs that we have done in the past, slowly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Ruth.
Ruth?
Hi, I'm Ruth Rothside. I'm with WJCI, that's Westchester Jewish Coalition for Immigration. And one of the things that we do is to create welcome circles for refugees and resettling refugees. And we do not directly resettle refugees, but we put people together so that they can do the work. And we definitely work with churches and mosques. One example is that, and I was just there on Sunday, we have an event once a month at the Ukrainian, St. Michael's Ukrainian Catholic Church. They're wonderful get-togethers for Ukrainian immigrants. And that has worked out really well, and people, they really love it. And now, when I was there on Sunday, there were two families that had just been resettled by a group of people that WJCI put together. So those are some of the things that we're doing. And if anyone wants to get involved, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you for your important work. Okay, who's that? Elizabeth?
Yeah, hi, I'm Elizabeth Lampert. I go to Sharai Tikva. I'm really here for personal reasons, just because I'm very interested in this group and I could attend the meeting for the first time ever. But I was really excited about the movie idea with the teens, or the tweens, I guess. I think that is a fabulous idea, and I think it should probably be more community-wide, perhaps, rather than one synagogue with one church. Because I think maybe kids would feel more comfortable coming in a larger group. But I mean, just the whole thing, there's just so many ideas and so many things we could do. And I hope that we choose one or two and not get lost in the weeds of, oh, you know, we can do this and this and this, and then we do nothing. Because I think it's really important. I really appreciated a lot of what Reverend Trollinger was saying in particular, from his perspective as a Christian. And I know my Rabbi Baldachin, he mentioned several times, is close with him. We're not doing anything specific that I know of at Sherry Tikva, but hopefully we will be doing something.
Great, thank you, appreciate it. Mai?
Hi, I'm Mai Wickstrom. I'm a board member on WJC and a member at Congregation Emmanuel of Westchester. And like Elizabeth, I'm very energized by the idea of getting young people involved, because I think that's where we can really make a difference. And when Dahlia mentioned getting the Asian community involved, it really piqued my interest, because I am of Asian heritage. And I think a lot of what we do has traditionally been Black and Jewish, and there is a lot of commonality there. But there's a lot of anti-Asian sentiment going on, as well as against other races. So I would love to see us broaden our engagement, and we can do things. I love the movie idea, even getting together young people to do community projects. I think the more we can get them together in soup kitchens, at Feeding Westchester warehouses, gets them to see the humanity in one another and helps to build those bridges and kind of negate some of the racism that they see around them. So that's where I'd love to put some of my energy.
Great, thank you. Stuart?
Yes, Stuart Colbert, also at TBA with Melissa, and very active over the years in Hillel and on this Westchester Jewish Council board. I'm always one who likes the one-on-one. I'm not big on the groups, but the one-on-one. And when they were talking about the Grandpa United, that kind of rang my bell. So I personally will be looking for a grandchild. I think that the one-on-one really works, and then to bring them into what you're doing, maybe to be able to bring one at the right age, maybe somebody a little bit older, into our Hillel. Come to a Hillel meeting, come to our temple meeting, sit in with us and see what we do, and just get a feeling about who we are, that we're real people. And that personal touch, I think, goes a long way. And I think that's absolutely critical in going forward to widen who we are, who quote they are, and to make everybody a much stronger community together.
Great, thank you so much for those words. I think that's Bill up there. Yep. Bill?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for
Good.
inviting me. Very interesting conversation. And Karen, you and your committee have some really great work ahead of you this year, and I'm very proud that it's under the banner of Westchester Jewish Council.
Thank you. Okay, I can't see who's Stephen.
Yes, thank you. Hi, Steve Berkowitz. I live in Mamaroneck. I'm sure, like everyone else, I'm just deeply affected by the rising anti-Semitism going on in this country, and even in our community, maybe lesser numbers, but certainly going on. And I was, I guess, moved by the trip that these clergy went on, the UJA and the council trip, and just felt that was a great opportunity to help spread the word, and wanted to be a part of the Interfaith Roundtable, but really the Interfaith Committee. And I'm also a member of Bethel, Congregation Bethel or Bethel Synagogue, I guess, in New Rochelle. Our Rabbi Shuck, I know, has been on that trip, and others, and it's something that's deeply important to him, community outreach, et cetera. And I think this was an unbelievable roundtable, a good start, and just to hear the reactions of some of the clergy that went on, it shows that it was a real positive step. I too like the idea of seeing younger kids get together. I know Elizabeth and some others have mentioned it. I think it's a great start. I think many kids do not have the opportunity to spend time with different type of kids, and to do it in any setting would be a positive step, and be it through community service, be it through a movie night. It really, to me, doesn't matter. Just getting them together and being able to share of themselves would be a great thing. Lastly, I'm also a board member at the JCC, so welcome Dahlia there, and know how impactful she's been in the short time that she's there, and just think that that is something that we should be doing there as well, that the outreach is important, so that we as the Jewish community are not sort of set off on the side as just operating alone. We just need to be part of the bigger Westchester community. So thank you, Karen. Thank you, Council, for moving forward with this.
Thanks so much, Steve. Cheryl?
Hi, I'm a bit of an interloper here because I live in Connecticut. I'm a member of Temple Shalom in Greenwich, but I am co-chair of Interfaith and Intergroup Relations for AJC Westchester Fairfield. Among the other many things that we do, we have formed a community of conscience to bring together all people of goodwill. So people who value democracy and celebrate our diversity, to promote civility and democracy and inclusiveness and these sort of attributes. If you'd like to be a member, you can email westchester@ajc.org. But it gives us one powerful voice to speak up when there is a need, when something good happens, like the passage of the Jabir Higher No Hate Act, or when something bad happens, like a hate crime. So that's one of the major initiatives we have.
Great. Thank you for reminding us of that and sharing that, Cheryl. AJC, you do great work. No question about it. Jennifer? Jen, I think that's you.
Okay, hi. I'm Jen Sokol, and I'm a member of Bet Torah in Northern Westchester, Mount Kisco. And I'd like to just share a few things that Bet Torah has been involved with, which I think are really great efforts, perhaps that can be emulated countywide. Bet Torah, under the leadership of Sandy Kellogg, who unfortunately couldn't be on this call today, has built what's called a multi-faith partnership of Northern Westchester with some other faith-based institutions in Northern Westchester, including the Upper Westchester Muslim Society, Bet Torah, and Presbyterian Church Mount Kisco, and have been in the last few years coming together to get to know each other better, but also really to do some important work in Northern Westchester. Many of these issues that we've been talking about, they've been starting to tackle, or at least starting to make headway. Interestingly enough, on Sukkot, the last few years, Bet Torah has invited some of the partners to sort of have a festival community where we're able, or holiday festival, where we're bringing our partners in. And this year it was under the title of Welcoming the Stranger. And all of the partnering institutions came together to talk about what they've been doing in terms of immigrant resettlement. And I know that there's been a lot of overlap together with Ruth's organization, WJCI, together with Holly Rosen-Fink. But this also is, extending to working together with interfaith partners to tackle the issue of resettling immigrants, both from Afghanistan and more recently from the Ukraine. In addition, a really great program I'd love to mention was it was pre-COVID, but the group organized a Thanksgiving food distribution together with Feeding Westchester, in which there were teenagers involved, and the kids were there to help distribute food to families. So it was this real experience of like direct service. And I mean, I just know personally my own kids were involved, and it was very touching for them to sort of, be in that scenario of understanding that there are others in their community who are suffering from food insecurity, and that the community can come together to address issues like that. And then in addition, also, we've been involved in interfaith vigils in Northern Westchester, particularly around the issues of hate and violence and bigotry and certain acts, even including anti-Semitism. When the Squirrel Hill situation occurred, we invited in our neighbors for a service, and really the show of solidarity is something I think that speaks volumes. It shows that together we can all have we can amplify our voices if we come together with our partners in our neighborhood, in terms of coming together with multiple faiths and working together to address these important and pressing issues.
Great. That's great. Thank you so much. So I only see names or photos. If anyone else, Adina, Joel, Dan, or David want to unmute and speak, that would be fantastic. No?
I can start. This is Joel. I can start. So I am co-chair of the Temple Israel Center of White Plains Social Action Committee. And one of the things that we really realize is we don't do enough interfaith work. When we do interfaith work, we have greater credibility and leverage because of the faith aspect of what we bring to our voices. And as somebody said, we need to reach out beyond interfaith into intergroup. But first, let's get the interfaith together, and then we can reach out to the secular groups that also do social action, or what churches call ministries. So for me, there are two types of things I would really like to do. I'd like us to have like a little cafeteria plan. Let's call it 2 or 3 events that are on the individual level, what people have called the individual level. Like, I always think of the Habitat for Humanity Brush with Kindness program, where a bunch of churches and synagogues and their teens and families get together and they paint a school, or they fix up some houses, or they fix up a community center. Because together they become friends, and they become friends at the teen level, at the family level, and it really builds that kind of thing. People talk about kids making sandwiches, the teens making sandwiches, midnight runs, those kinds of things, working in a food pantry. So that's the first kind, is really maybe 2 or 3 events that are individual. And then the other is really the policy things, which people have emphasized, like I know the Westchester Library is putting together a group called, Visioning Westchester 2030. And I think that's the kind of thing we have to think about. Is it about food scarcity? Is it about housing? Those were the 2 things the minister mentioned. Bail reform, cash bail reform has come under great pressure politically, and yet there's importance in good bail reform. Immigration, social justice, those are sort of policy things that churches and synagogues and mosques together can have a great voice in setting policy. So those are the things that I would hope we could do together. And as I say, we don't have to do it all, as somebody said, but maybe a couple programs in each, the individual and the policy, would be really, really effective. And then we could start meeting each other and becoming friends in the social action ministry. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. I see, Adina, you came on screen.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, how are you? I'm Adina Goldberg. This is my first meeting with you, but thank you. I enjoyed it very much. I've been attending the Thanksgiving Diversity Breakfast for a few years, thanks to Pam a few years back. And I belong to Temple, Israel, and White Plains, where I'm involved in the Racial Justice Committee. And I'm also on the board at AJC, where I am on the Interfaith Committee, you know, and I help Cheryl out too. So I guess, you know, mainly I'm interested in this type of work because of, I guess, the threat to, of course, the Jewish community and the rise in anti-Semitism, but also, you know, the threat to all marginalized communities these days everywhere. And I just think it's, you know, so important for, you know, to make friends across different communities and have those, you know, relationships in place because of all of the dangerous things that, you know, have been happening. And so, you know, I really do, I like a lot of the ideas. I like the idea about having youth get involved. And I think that's a great way for kids to be educated about different communities when, you know, it gives them a chance to make friends outside of their own community. And, you know, I also think those types of projects are good for adults too. I think a lot of adults, you know, would benefit from seeing, you know, the movie Till and other, you know, activities like that. A lot of times, you know, people get kind of just involved in their own community. And so those types of events give that people, you know, older people also a way to outreach to other communities. So.
Great, thank you. The only one who's left, I think, oh, we didn't get around the table. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm pretty repetitive by now.
It's okay.
I'm Audrey Samerson, past president of Temple Israel Center, and I'm on the AJC board, and this is my first meeting in this group. We do have the Racial Justice Committee, and Rabbi Annie Tucker went on this trip, so which she said was very worthwhile. I feel really strongly that we should approach this through food insecurity. I volunteer at a food shelter, and there's nothing like being at the shelter to really see what is going on. And I don't think it's just for teens. I think people my age, which is old already, have no idea about food insecurity in Westchester. And it's a great way to get together with with other interfaith groups and really target like doing social justice, and then you could forget about, and I mean, there's so many groups focusing on anti-Semitism and all this. We should try and do an event around food, like Target. It's such a problem. People don't appreciate it. And I think like, there's not, like, people have many political views, but they don't have many differing views about food insecurity. Like, we can get everyone at my synagogue to participate in a food insecurity event.
Food shelter. Hope, yeah. Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Great passion, I share it. Gabe?
Stop.
Well, hi, I'm Gabe Lomas, and I'm a member of Temple Beth Shalom in Mayapack, and I am also on the board here for the council. I don't know. I think in my professional world, I'm expert in school safety. And I didn't sort of happen to be there. It sort of happened to me. Like I was involved in the network of supporters after the shootings at Sandy Hook Elementary. So like I researched that area. I know that area very well. And I know that it's relationships that keep kids safe and keep people safe. And so everything that you guys are really talking about is like understanding each other, building relationships with other people, knowing your neighbor. And those are all things that I think are good and healthy. And so I'm excited about the ideas. There's so many wonderful ideas.
Thank you so much. Okay, I think that we have gone around. We are going to write up and share back out what happened and what we all shared and the ideas put up on the table today. I really want to say thank you for your taking this much time out of, I know what are busy schedules, to participate in this noble endeavor that not only the council is deeply involved in, but across many Jewish and non-Jewish organizations as well. This is about building bridges. It's about making friends so that we can all together make the world a better place, but build understanding so that we can ultimately eradicate the kinds of not just events, but feelings that seem to get passed along generation to generation. So thank you so much. I wish everybody a very happy Hanukkah. And if you are celebrating Christmas, happy Christmas. If you're celebrating Kwanzaa, happy Kwanzaa. There's probably better ways to say that. But we are very, very happy and hope, and you will receive communication from us and about when we're going to, how we'll organize our work and when we'll get together to discuss and move forward. So thank you again so very much, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful program.
Thank you. Glad to have you. Oh, it's great. So nice to meet you. Welcome to the.
Yeah, well,
Thank
thank you, thank you.
You got a good shout out.
Yeah. I never Steve. I'm actually, texting with his wife. That's okay.
Oh, that's so funny.
But yeah, we're committed, we're excited.